Hello and welcome to D2C Podcast. I'm Eric Dick. Today we are joined by Luis Amoroso, CEO of Full Glass Wine, owner of Wink and Wine Insiders, along with Pat Ballas, head of e-commerce for Nift, the platform designed to help D2C brands reach their acquisition goals by putting offers in the hands of net new customers.
On the digital side, this is an important acquisition tool for us, and roughly 25% of our acquisition comes through Nift.
Today we'll hear about Nift, a platform that reaches 37 million people and shares unique offers from brands like Wine Insiders as a thank you.
We take that unique offer and deliver it to them in a high attention way. We have a patented algorithm that basically matches that offer with a consumer. Year to date, our average conversion rate for all our D2C brands is over 10%. So we're delivering first-time customers for brands like Lewis at the CPA or lower.
This episode is an eye-opening exploration of the world of new customer acquisition with Nift and Full Glass Wine. Want to get in on the action? Check out gonift.com and enter the code DTCThanks. We want to reward our good listeners with a free D2C gift through Nift. Thanks again, guys, and on with the show. Pat, Luis, welcome to the D2C podcast. Luis, let's start with you. Give me a little overview of what's happening in the D2C wine space right now and what you're taking advantage of.
Yeah, so what's happening is sort of, coming out of COVID, the boom cycle in COVID, a lot of companies became overextended in inventory. They spent too much on customer acquisition during COVID, on customers that had a different profile than their pre-COVID customers, and had higher attrition coming out of COVID that put them in bad cash positions with excess inventory. And you saw that not only in the wine space, but in a lot of e-commerce companies where they took too large of positions in inventory, their sales declined, and they got put in a bad cash position. So Full Glass was created to roll up companies in the direct-to-consumer wine space. We've acquired two brands so far. The first was Wink, which was a subscription business. And second was Wine Insiders, which is more of a transactional business. And looking now to, in the next 30 days, roll up the third brand / company and, move on from there.
What are the key changes you're making to these businesses to right the ship, so to say, in the roll up?
So I think a lot of these companies were funded sort of what we call the frothy days, sort of from 2011, 2012 to 2019, where there was a lot of sort of inexpensive, free flowing money, and some companies got funded that. In any business, obviously, it's across multiple areas. But in the wine space, you have to know wine, you have to know logistics, you have to know distribution, you have to know marketing, packaging, and it's putting those all together. One of the key areas we see as we've rolled up these companies is improvements in cost of goods sold and improvements in SG&A. These companies had a lot of employees and way too large of workforces for the sales revenue that they were doing. And then the third area was marketing, just crazy marketing spends on areas that were not really sort of more brand building than direct to consumer acquisition. And what we're really focused on is cost per customer acquisition and LTV, and you didn't really see that in some of these companies.
The fundamentals, back to the fundamentals.
Yes.
Yeah, that's people. Yeah, people's appetite for wine is unending, even post-pandemic. So then what brought you to Nift as an option to scale?
So, I got a Nift for some other product. I can't even remember what it was. And I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. So I went to the website, checked it out. And there was another wine company running on Nift. Didn't really like their offer. And everything. So I thought I'd reach out to Nift and connected with Pat and really liked him and the team and we really just created a strong working relationship. I mean, I think we went in saying, hey, like, we don't have a preconceived notion of what's going to work for Nift. We don't have an offer that this is it, take it or leave it. We're like, let's work together to figure out how to make this a win-win and orchestrate the offer that's best for their customers. And, we've been very open book both ways about what works for each other.
Amazing. Let's back it up a little bit, because we were recently, I think people are always looking for ways to acquire customers at reliable rates. The ad platforms we talk about so often on this platform are getting tougher, heading into Q4. And so I'm interested, Pat, in Nift and what its main proposition in the D2C ecosystem. So explain that to the listeners.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Eric, and thanks for the kind words, Louis. Really, what we focus in on doing, Eric, for D2C brands is helping them acquire customers, and not just any customer, incremental new customers. And it's a high attention platform that we acquire those customers through. And then ultimately, like Louis kind of drove to, we want to understand what their CPAs are and deliver consistent CPAs at that level or below for them, and really
Amazing.
deliver that unlock scale.
So that's the why. Start with the why, the most important piece. And so Louis alluded to it, but the what is this sort of gifting experience that you've kind of tapped. You've kind of created like a bit of a gifting network. So explain this concept.
Yeah, no, it really is kind of unique, because the whole premise is there's ad blindness everywhere, and then you don't know if the ad's a real person or not. So really what we do is, first of all, our audience comes from our partners. So we have partners that share a gift, all right, and we've had 37 million folks in our ecosystem, all right, that brands like Louis create unique offers, all right, and we take that unique offers and deliver it to them in a high attention way. And we have a patented algorithm, all right, that basically matches that offer with a consumer that has a high potential for a match rate. And then once that match is created, ideally they convert with the customer. So year to date, our average conversion rate for all our D2C brands like Louis is over 10%. So we're delivering first-time customers for brands like Louis at the CPA or lower. And then how do we unlock scale?
Unbelievable. And what? So paint even a more specific picture of the gifting experience on the front end of this. So who is generating, like Louis? Where were you offered your gift in what customer experience were you offered this gift?
I frankly can't remember whether it was Uber or I did something and then got the Nift gift via email. And yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't remember what I had done.
That's okay. Put you right on the spot there. But we mentioned Uber, but Pat, like what other kind of experiences provide the front end of this gift experience?
Yeah, so we've got a plethora of partners, some name drops, for example, like Park Mobile is one. So that's a large parking app here in the United States. Meetup's another one. iHeart's another one. Afterpay's another one. MindBody's another one. And MindBody's a great example of how this works. So if you think about it, MindBody's a platform that powers over 40,000 local gyms and studios. Okay. And so a use case with a MindBody studio is if you sign up and go to Pat's Pilates, you could get an email saying, hey, Eric, thanks for signing up for Pat's Pilates. Here's a $30 Nift gift for being a loyal customer at my studio. And then literally you then click on that email, then you come onto the Go Nift site, and that's where it takes place. You give us your name and email address. The matching algorithm says, what do we think Eric's interested in? What has a high probability of match rate? Who aren't you a customer of today? Well, let's surface those categories to you. We're building intent and interest. Then you see 2 gift cards. And that's really interesting about our platform, because it's that high attention where you see one gift card and another. Then you pick that one that has the offer that you want to go forward with. And then you get a code to use on their site or a direct conversion page. And then you convert on that D2C brand site.
Is it a swiping? Is it a Tinder situation? You're swiping left, swiping right on which offer you like better?
Yeah, you can right there go right next one offer, next offer, pick the offer you want to go, select the offer. And that's when you then get the code to use on, for example, Wine Insiders or Wink site, or get a dedicated landing page and you convert on their site.
So how do you select the brands that get into the Nift network? Are you doing a lot of demographic data on the kinds of customers you're sorting in order to figure out kind of what products you want to bring in to match them with?
Um, really, that's the matching algorithm. So again, we have a patented algorithm. So you can Google
Yeah.
Nift Networks patents and be bored by reading the patent. But literally what it does is we have gifts that phrase the whole audience. So again, clearly, like for example, with Lewis's business, there's certain states you can't sell DTC wine in. So we suppress those states. Or we have geographic or DMA centric businesses. But really that matching algorithm starts to find who's the right audience to serve that gift to, who's the right partner audience, the right consumer, and then it leans into those and leans away from those that don't drive conversion and engagement. Because ultimately the vote for a successful gift is that consumer coming in, selecting the gift, and ultimately purchasing. So our algorithm's anchored around the consumer intent of category selection, gift selection, and conversion. It's not just a pure bid play environment. It's based on that consumer voting with how they select gifts and how they purchase.
Very cool. And then you mentioned scale. I'm curious, how should advertisers coming into, or how should brands kind of coming into this environment think about scale?
I mean, it really gets to a question of what do they want. We've had, candidly, some brands actually we had to pause because they've run out. We have brands that, like, for example, like one of the top meal kits. All right, we deliver incremental new customers to them. Q3, we delivered over 16,000 net new customers to them. And literally, we delivered those half their CPA target. Okay.
And this is a CPA target that they would have for other platforms like Meta or Google, essentially. Wow.
You got it. So they give us a budget. We manage to the budget while we're managing under the CPA. Like a large, for example, one of the large music apps, literally we drive close to 12,000 net new trial users a month for them. Okay. And again, they give us the CPA target. We're managing the campaign and delivering the net new customers to them, the trial users, and they're delighted with us. So how do we just continue the relationship?
Unbelievable. Lewis, for your wine brands, how do you, where do you put this in your distribution picture in terms of its share of distribution, and how big of a priority is this gift, the Nift network with your growth?
Yeah, so we do all forms of direct-to-consumer marketing, everything from what we call old world, Sunday circular, package inserts, direct mail, and then new world, which isn't so new anymore, but digital. But I'm an old guy, so it's still new for me. So, the digital media. So on the digital side, this is an important acquisition tool for us, and roughly like 25% of our acquisition comes through Nift.
That's pretty badass. That's significant. Terrible pun. But what have you done to optimize that? Like I bet that's been a process. It's been a ramp up. But like what's been done to like make sure that relationship works to that level?
So Pat and the Wink team do an amazing job of working with our team to optimize everything from email, looking at unsubscribe rates for, because we're running both subscription offers as well as transactional one-time offers. So on the subscription side, they're looking at who's unsubscribing, why they're unsubscribing. Does one of their clients create bigger unsub rates for us than others, where it might not make sense to target that client? And so there's just a strong collaboration to make everything work.
And then Pat, let's even just be more specific too on the process. So you get the gift card, which you mentioned $30. I bet there's probably ranges that people use, and then that becomes a coupon code that then you use on the actual brand's website, which they can then track on their side.
You got it. So we have a Shopify app integration. So if it's a Shopify site, it's clean, or other times it's going to a dedicated landing page. And Eric, if I can throw this out, if any of your listeners want to go to gonift.com, we created our own Nift gift for the DTC podcast listeners.
Oh, nice.
All they have to do is enter it in DTC thanks, all one word, and they can go through the experience on their own. And I'll give you a link you can throw in the show notes too, if you'd like.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Nice. Yeah, I have to call that out in the intro too, because we love gifts on the D2C podcast. That's half the reason I do this is for the swag I get. So
there you go.
Let's go. That's awesome.
But realistically, one of the things that when we think about this platform, we really think about the D2C marketers, because let's be honest, they've got a lot on their plate and the landscape's getting more and more challenging. So one of the things we try and deliver is a very light lift, because it's 100% managed service. So they see everything we see, so we're incredibly transparent, but they don't have to worry about turning a dial. We'll tell them the dials we think we should be turning to create the unlock on performance with CPA or for scale, get their buy-in, and then go forward with it. But they really don't have to manage the platform. We'll manage it as a managed service to create the unlock and the volume for them.
Very cool. And then, we have a broad range of brands listening to the D2C podcast. You mentioned that you're selective on the brands that you bring in because of, matching to your audience. So who in our audience is your ideal brand to sign up for Nift?
It's a great question, and thanks for asking it. We think about really lifestyle brands are great brands. So things you can use like a wine brand, food brand, things for the home, clothing, shoes, accessories. Like, for example, we work with a D2C sunglass brand. In Q3, we drove over 10,000 first-time customers for that brand. Okay. So that's how we think about it, is lifestyle brands. All right. Typically, we try and stay under the $100 out of average order value. We find that work converts the best. And then work with them to try and come up with the right gift offer and the right creative. And we do all the creative ourselves. They approve the creative, but we'll take care of the creative for them as well.
And often their AOV will exceed the gift amount, I imagine.
Oh, yes, very much so. So again, that's where we work and structure kind of what's the right performance that creates the unit economics they need from a platform. And then if we feel we can hit it, we spin up a pilot. And then how do we unlock scale as we start to prove the concept out?
It's really fun. It's fundamentally about delighting the customer, because you're just that concept of getting I took an Uber ride, or I did this or that, and then it just anchors when you get a gift from that experience. It sort of anchors that, probably adds LTV to them, and then creates this marketplace opportunity for brands on the other side.
You hit the nail on the head. It's all about surprising and delighting and thanking your customer for doing something contextual. They're not even expecting it, and then all of a sudden they get an email, or all of a sudden something pops up in the app. Thanks for registering your child for that youth soccer league. You're not even expecting that. And now all of a sudden you're getting a gift for doing something that you weren't expecting.
You don't have to name drop, but can you give me an example of like the most delightful experience that that Nift has facilitated, from the front end through to the product conversion rate?
Well, I'll use Lewis's, because we'll do post-purchase surveys. So about 14 days after a purchase, we send a note to the customer. Hey, and like Lewis's brand, we get a lot of great feedback saying, love the wines, I already ordered another round. So we're trying to not just delight them, but then check to make sure, how do they feel about the brand they purchased from? So Wine Insiders is a great brand that we featured for well over a year now, and it gets great reviews and feedback from the customers who purchase.
Very cool. And is there a discount that happens in this process at all? Or is it sort of, is the money just passed along essentially?
In essence, it's passed along. So like the value of the gift is a monetary value.
Yeah.
And then they apply that code to the site, and then that value is taken off the cart. So then they're getting the new value based on the gift value that they received through the Nift gift. And then the brand set that value with us, and we can test different gift values. So like Lewis alluded to earlier, we've tested a lot of different gift values for Wine Insiders to find what's the right value that creates the unit economics for his business and the velocity and conversion and delighting the consumers to purchase at a high rate.
Very cool. Lewis, we're headed into Q4, which I imagine with the holidays and everything is probably as big of a deal as it is for any other brand. Does your strategy in Q4 with Nift scale along with the other platforms, or do you have it sort of at a steady rate, or is it something you think you're going to scale over Q4?
No, yeah, we'll definitely scale it over Q4.
Nice. And then so does that just mean allocating it budget, or does it mean mean being more aggressive with your CPA? What are the actual mechanics of scaling that from your side?
Basically just giving more budget because it's the holidays and people are just buying more. And so that will allow us to spend more.
Turnkey. It's the thing that platforms, agencies, networks love to hear, especially for the holidays. Let's spend more. Very cool. Okay, well, we have to. So it was giftnift.com.
Gonift.com. And then in, again, the link in the show notes, and they'll see it. Enter your code. The code for the listeners is DTC Thanks. DTC Thanks, all one word. And then they'll go through the experience themselves, and they can claim a gift. And Wine Insiders is out there. Please, if that's one of your options, partake if it's allowed in your state, and enjoy some great wine from Lewis's company.
Amazing. I would also, we've talked about the D2C brands listening, but the other, like, there are other people who listen to this podcast, and it's like, I think more people could think about their unit economics and adding that delightful experience of gifting your audience. So talk a little bit about the kinds of brands you think should be thinking about, offering that gifting experience.
From a partner side, typically our partners have a large audience that we work with. So that's where somebody like a MindBody or an iHeart or a Park Mobile. But actually we have D2C brands that work on both sides of the ecosystem. They're on the one side offering a gift and acquiring customers, but then they're also sharing Nift gifts to their customers at a contextual moment to say thank you. So we do have some D2C brands that kind of play on both sides of the equation.
Very cool.
Because you can always say thanks to your customer for a purchase.
100%.
Or a review.
So where do you see this space going? Like the scale you're able to achieve with these partners is already massive. It's mostly a US based service at this point.
No, I'll call it out. We're US and Canada.
Okay.
And actually for your Canadian listeners, because I know you're north of the border there, we're looking for more gift providers in Canada. So we've had some of our partners have said, hey, we want to give Nift gifts in Canada. So we started sending Nift gifts out to their audience there. And now, as you know, some of the brands in the States might not go to Canada and vice versa. So we're interested in expanding the D2C brands we're featuring on the platform in Canada.
Very cool. And then what are your goals with growing Nift as a platform over the next couple of years? Where do you see it going?
We've seen record growth coming over the last couple of years and going nowhere but up from there. So literally we've multiple X's since I've joined the company a couple of years ago, and we anticipate multiple. So we're actively recruiting and hiring and bringing on more brands and partners. So it's 37 million is where we're at today. I could see that number being significantly multiples higher of that by this time next year.
And then, Lewis, we always ask if we gave you $50,000 to grow in the next little while, in Q4, where would you allocate it? So if Nift is the answer, would love to hear it. But I'm also just curious from your perspective as an entrepreneur, if you had $50,000 extra for one or both your brands, where would you apply it?
How we acquire customers is obviously we have a target CPA. And the nice thing about Nift is, you could say you have a target CPA, but if you do a mailing and, the Postal Service parks the truck out in their back, some hidden lot, and your CPA skyrockets for that mailing for whatever reason, you're not hitting it. With the nice thing with Nift is, we're hitting our CPA every time. So on the digital side, I would say we would probably allocate it towards Nift.
Hot damn. I guess when it's a turnkey solution and when it hits your goals, without, I just did a podcast with someone who was on the creative side of Meta, and there's, to do Meta at scale, to achieve scale on Meta right now, you have to feed the beast constantly with new creative, fresh creative all the time. And so to be able to find a more turnkey solution is probably attractive to a lot of our listeners. So I think this will be a good one for them.
Definitely. Again, thanks for having us on and the opportunity.
Nice. Okay, cool. So gonift.com. Notes will be in the show notes. Say one more time the promo code to enter.
DTC Thanks.
DTC Thanks. Thank you guys for coming on. I can't wait to check out my Nift gift and be delighted. This is fun. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
you. Eric.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.